Marwan Bishara is joining us here in the studio. He's Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. So there's plenty of points for discussion. Do you think he's going to get through them all?
Well, probably yes. Certainly he has a whole day, as it were. But what's interesting is what he will not get into. I think probably it's good for us to cover that because we will be covering throughout the day what he will say. But what he won't say is anything about Egyptian human rights, Egyptian political prisoners, Egyptian repression. I think he's going to make the case that the Trump administration is nothing like CBS News 60 Minutes program. They're not going to be asking him the tough questions about his human rights records, about Sisi's human rights records, about what has happened the last few years under his rule. That has been ruled out by the Trump administration as talking point between Trump envoys and some of the region's dictators and authoritarian regimes. Hence, I think the axis of authoritarianism, if you will, that is needed to confront Iran will have to start in Egypt because Egypt is the bigger Arab country, the more influential Arab country, perhaps not the richest. But certainly you cannot create a real axis in the Middle East without Egypt. Egypt is indispensable for various parties that the United States wants to bring in, including Israel and Saudi Arabia, in order to create that kind of front against Iran. It's also indispensable for any deal of the century, of the decade, or of the millennia between Palestinians and Israel. So I think, yes, these will be important points. And I think what is needed here, in order for Sisi not to face the likes of tough questions from the 60 Minutes program, he will need to get in with the program, as it were. He needs to support American policies vis-a-vis Iran, which, by the way, he has been slightly hesitant to do. He needs also to support American policy towards Israel-Palestine. And by the way, he said that on Sunday, when he was asked about Egyptian-Israeli security coordination, he said they have never been better than under his regime.
Let's look ahead to the speech. Interesting choice of venue, Cairo, interesting timing, 10 years on from Obama, and at a time where there's a lot of mixed messages coming out of the White House. So how much of that speech is the region actually going to believe?
Well, OK, so I actually went back. It's been a long time since I went back and read the Obama speech. And I must admit, in retrospect, I was a bit tough on the former president. Then, when we commented here about the speech, it was an incredible speech. I mean, one must admit. And in so many ways, it's going to be impossible for Pompeo or for President Trump to imitate. These are big shoes to fill. And there's a certain uniqueness about President Obama speaking to the Arab world. I mean, he had them at Assalamu alaikum. You know, the whole Muslim world applauded when Barack Obama said, I don't think Secretary Pompeo is big on Assalamu alaikum. He's a strong evangelical in the United States. It's going to be very difficult to defend the Muslim ban that President Trump wanted since he was a candidate. It's going to be difficult to defend the recognition of Jerusalem as a capital of the Jewish state, which came as a slap to most Muslims and Christians around the world, and so on and so forth. President Obama was humble, was engaging. He wanted to engage Iran, so much so that he basically obsessed about that engagement, risking a lot of terrible things happening in Syria and in Iraq. I think we're going to see something parallel here. President Trump and Secretary Pompeo speaking in Cairo about, again, obsessing with Iran, but negatively against Iran, and hence risking a lot of wrong, bad things happening in the region, including in Israel, Palestine, in the Gulf, and in terms of human rights in the Arab world in general.
OK, well, I look forward to chatting more to you after that speech happens. Thanks, Marwan.